the Musari Show. If you are tuning in from YouTube, please be sure to hit the like button and drop a comment. If you are listening on Spotify, please be sure to drop a 5-star rating. That's the best way of supporting our channel. So today we got a special guest, and he is the CEO of Simply Noted, and he is a former NFL player. So, ladies and gentlemen, do welcome Rick Elmore. So, Rick, it's really great to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No, awesome. So, I seen your inspiring story of how you've built a business. I really admire people that come from different backgrounds and all of a sudden have like thriving businesses. And I see that you had an NFL career before that. So, how was growing up with the aspirations of being in the NFL? Who were your favorite players growing up, and how was that transition from being a professional athlete in the league that so many dream to be part of, over to where you got to today?
Sure, great question. Well, yeah, so I guess I'll just start at the very beginning. I grew up in a very like blue collar, middle class family. I was the first person to go to college in my family. I knew very early on if I was going to my parents were going to leave me a business or money. So if I wanted to make something with my life, I was going to have to go out there and earn it. My father passed away when I was 7, so I had my first childhood trauma at a very young age. My mom did a phenomenal job, being a single parent, but keeping us busy. And the way that she did that was got us involved with sports. And I think that was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it started me out on a trajectory that would completely change my life. I played all the sports growing up, but I fell in love with football. Going through what I went through at a young age, I had all this inner anger and energy that I had to get out. And football was a way for me to get that out. I always joke that I fell in love with football because I could hit people, not get in trouble, just the contact of the sport. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's just it was a physical sport. But I didn't really have an idea that I was going to be an athlete until probably my sophomore year in high school. I set a state record as a freshman for quarterback sacks. So it was 28 sacks in one season. I had no idea. I just thought I was doing my job. And my coach came to me after the season, at an award assembly. I was getting all these awards and accolades, and I was oh, that's cool, that's cool. And he's shaking me. He's Rick, wake up. You don't know what you just did. This is phenomenal. It's not normal. And I kind of just realized in that moment, I was hey, I have something here. I need to pay more attention to it. And I kind of just committed myself, right then and there to hey, I'm going to take this as far as possible. And he was you can go to college and it can do all these things. And I was cool, I can go to college by playing football. So I had a really good high school career, went to the University of Arizona with my twin brother. We grew up playing sports side by side. And for the first time ever, going to college, I had to go against my brother. He was an offensive lineman. I was an outside linebacker. So we had to compete in practice. So that was really weird. But I had a really good college career as a 3-year starter in the Pac-10 back then. This was back in the late 2010s. 3-year starter. I led the Pac-10 in sacks. So, again, what I was good with in high school, rushing the passer, had a lot of success there in college as well. It was all Pac-10. I was up for awards, didn't win them. It was whatever. There's the Ted Hendricks Award, best defensive lineman, whatever. But was drafted very late in the NFL draft in the 6th round. So I had a chip on my shoulder and had the very typical NFL career. 3 years, cut, picked up. And people always think if you go to the NFL, you make all this money. 1% of the athletes that go there actually have those careers.
Yeah.
Every year, there's newer, younger, healthier, cheaper talent trying to get in. So just to stay there for 3 years is a huge win. But I always tell people I made more money in 3 years in my corporate career than I did in 3 years in the NFL. Just because how contracts work. Contracts in the NFL are not like the MLB or NBA. You only make what you make up until that day. So if you sign a $3 million contract, that means nothing because you can get cut 2 days later and only make a fraction of a percent of that contract. And most of the contracts tied to performance and winnings and Super Bowl, all this stuff. People don't know that. But yeah, I got done. And I thought I was going to play until I was 30. I felt like I had the talent to do that. But, you know, one day they stopped calling and you have to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
And what I did, what I think a lot of people have a hard time doing is just taking everything they learned, you know, from their past and apply it to something else and go forward with it. And I had, you know, at that time, like 18 years of like developing all these skills as an athlete of working hard, passion, desire, perseverance, strength, working on a team, competitive spirit, discipline to stay with something, right?
Yeah.
And I just applied that to my corporate career and had a lot of success. I worked in medical sales. I was either top 1% or top 5 sales rep in the company. But I saw where my career was going, and I knew there was just something else out there for me.
Yeah.
Like my managers were always traveling. They never saw their families. They're hanging out in bars. I was like, that's not the life I want to live. I want to be home. I want to see my kids. And I went back and did my MBA. And I always, you know, you gotta walk down different paths, and like what you're looking for will find you within your journey. And I think a lot of people like fail to realize that. It's like, I'm waiting for this idea to happen. Ideas don't happen unless you're out there looking for them. And I mean, what I do now, if you would have told me this is what I was going to do 15 years ago or 20 years ago, it's like, you're crazy. Like, I'm a football player who got into sales, who has now built one of the largest robotics, software, industrial automation businesses in the United States. And we're a niche business, so we're a smaller business.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm doing engineering, I'm doing software development, automation, you know, print automation, mail automation. It's wild. But when I was going through my MBA, and this is like, you know, the little nugget, you know, for people to kind of like ingest and take away from this, it was, I wasn't a good student, but I went back and I was interested in business. And once you're interested in something, it changes everything. You know, when I was in my undergrad in high school, like I had to study to remember to take a test. Like, that's why you went to school. You go back to school, like I went back to learn about business. I became obsessed. I was like, oh my God, like I don't want to be a sales rep my entire life. There's something else out there for me. I want to learn about business, maybe eventually start a business. So I got to go something different. And I just like loved being in class, like hearing about something completely new that I was fascinated in. And this is where my life changed. About a year into my program, I had a marketing professor who was talking about all the success rates in marketing. And he was talking about direct mail, email, cold calling, you know, all the normal ways of marketing. And everything was super like small success rates, like 8%, 4%, 1%, 12%. And at the end of this 3-hour-long lecture, he says something that completely changed my life. It just like it was a light bulb moment. And this is what I'm saying. What you're seeking will find you within your journey.
Yeah.
He says, hey guys, like don't forget, you know what works better now, if not better than ever, is a good old fashioned handwritten note. They're rare. They get opened 99% of the time, and mailboxes are empty. Like we're living in the software age, the internet age. Like no one's like looking at the mailbox anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that's a no-brainer, but like who has the time to sit down and write a handwritten note? Like if there's a way to scale it or automate it, there has to be like something there. And that was like the genesis of like what got things started. But I got a pen plotter out of China, no technical background, no software background, no engineering background. I just told people what my idea was and found people to help me like get it started. But I got this pen plotter to write out 500 handwritten notes. And it took me about a month, but I sent them out to some of my prospects and the response rate was amazing. So like had an idea, searched it, found something that could probably help me, and then tested it. And that's when the entrepreneurial seizure happened. And anybody who's ever started a business knows what the entrepreneurial seizure is. When you validate an idea and you see that it has traction. And from that point on, there's, you know, I mean, 8 years later, you know, there's so much more to tell. But it was just such a fascinating start that everybody, you know, if they're seeking, will have some similar experience.
No, that's awesome. You know, you kind of reminded me of the book, I think it's Relentless, written by Michael Jordan's former conditioning coach, right? And you know, you made an interesting point where you mentioned that you know, earlier on, like you grew up with a lot of anger and you kind of took that out on sports. So now transitioning that energy from an athlete to now an entrepreneur, how do you get it out? Because the energy is still there, and there are things that still fire you up, but the way you get it out is kind of different. So how does it work for you now?
Well, I'm still very active. Yeah, it's a great question. Um, Man, how do I say this? Because I'm still a very driven person. No matter how bad this is, like I always talk to my wife about this. I think one of my superpowers as like an entrepreneur, as an individual, is that no matter how bad yesterday was or how bad the week is going, like this is like so honest and so true. I wake up every single day literally on fire and excited to go like an attack today, because I
Yeah,
know your entire life, you can work for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and all it takes is one opportunity, one day, one contract, one customer, one thing to completely change your life.
yeah,
And by me waking up every single day, forging forward no matter what, solving problems along the way, I'm not only like getting closer to my goals, but I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm evolving, and I know I'm that much closer. So
yeah,
I think I just have this, I'll just say drive. It's not even motivation, it's just drive, because I think
mm,
motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes, right? But it's the willingness to show up every single day, no matter what, no matter how you feel, and just do something
yeah.
is better than, throwing up all this momentum and energy for like a week, and then you weigh yourself out and then you drop off for 2 weeks, right? It's just figuring out a way to show up every single day and attack your goals.
Yeah, I hear you. And many times when we hear stories about successful entrepreneurs and businesses that have thrived, we always hear about the eureka moment when when the tracking started getting picked up, when the first validation happened, and how that translated to the scale over time. Maybe tell me about some times where you have had ideas, you have tried them out, and it hasn't worked, and what kept you going, because that's a very common challenge. I
Well,
also also ask that because I mean, if you look around, I'm very exposed to like the fintech side of things, and I know people who have been trying for many years, and it just doesn't go too well. They make millions of iterations. Some eventually get it right, and some just don't. So how was that journey, and what kept you going?
sure. I mean, what comes to mind is our engineering our project. So when we got started, we started on a pen plotter. I thought that technology was going to be how we would build this business. But as we continued down the road of building this business, we knew that that technology wasn't going to work. We were going to eventually have to build our own handwriting robot. And there was a bunch of roadblocks. Like number one, I didn't have the technical skills or knowledge. I didn't have the money. I didn't even know where to go. Like there was a bunch of reasons to what was going to make that goal or that reality to not happen. But you just get started where you are. So you get started with what you have, with what you know, and then you just take a step in a direction and talk to people about your idea, and get other people involved. I would talk to engineers, I would talk to software developers, I would talk to other entrepreneurs who scaled businesses and get their feedback, and try to learn from what they have already learned, because that's a sign of, like, I would say, what's the right word? I'm not going to, being smart is like learning from other people's mistakes or trying to
Hmm.
leverage other people's knowledge. Like I've had to learn from other people's mistakes and leverage other people's knowledge, because I didn't have the time, I didn't have the money, and I didn't have the expertise. So we ended up having to engineer and build our own handwriting robot, to actually scale this product. And I mean, we're on like iteration like 55,
Yeah.
but you just try to make a 1% improvement. The first thing was we had a pen plotter on a table with no paper feed. So we had to figure out a way to get paper to auto load into a robot that can write. And then we saw, oh, there's an auto pen. So then we tried an auto pen. And then after trying the auto pen, so that was like version 2.0, like, oh, the software doesn't work. We can't automate orders. We can't push information into the system. It's too manual. So then we went to an engineering firm and said, hey, like, this is our product. We need to now be able to automate orders like from the cloud to the machine and be able to control the technology. And then we went there, and then we're like, oh, now we have a quality control problem. We can't quality control at scale. We need to introduce camera systems, right? And now, like, now we
Hmm.
built the camera system. We're like, okay, now we have quality control. Like now we need to stuff envelopes and cards into the envelope. Like, how do we do that? Then we worked with mailing manufacturers and said, hey, what are you guys doing? and learned what they were doing and then implemented that technology. So it's like, it's a step process. I think what most people do is they get like so overwhelmed with the goal. It's like analysis paralysis. They don't even get started, but it's
Yeah.
just one small problem at a time. And that's just what entrepreneurs do. I mean, that's what you do in life. Like, you just solve problems and you grow. It doesn't matter if it's like through friendships, relationships, business, money problems, like hobbies. Like, you just you grow through what you go through. I say that a lot on podcasts. Like, you will just evolve over time, but just solving little problems and trying new things. So I think what's really important is to be curious and, have thick skin. Don't be afraid of failing. Don't be afraid of negative feedback. Don't be afraid of what other people think.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're on your own journey, and what you're going through is hyper personal, and it's really just comes down to what you're doing, your goals, and what you want to accomplish in the end.
No, that's interesting. The thing that got my attention the first time I had a look at Simply Noted is, nowadays we've seen like a boom and like note takers, right? You subscribe to these and you actually don't pay anything. Obviously, there are some paid like additional benefits and features that come with paid subscriptions, but you get enough done without paying for it. So, what made you think that there was a niche for like handwritten notes by robots versus the note takers that you already see in the market? Because, for example, you can actually take a voice note, or you can take like a handwritten piece of paper. I do it sometimes. I'll have a meeting and I'll write down the notes on paper if I don't have a tab or a computer with me, and I'll just take a picture. I throw it into like a note taker, and they'll translate that into like digitally written text. So, what made you see that there was a niche for handwritten notes? Because today the business, I believe, makes seven figures.
Yes, yeah, we're multi seven figure recurring
Multi
revenue.
multi seven figure, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, my mindset's always been sales and marketing. So we use, I think this is a video podcast. We send like handwritten notes that look like this, real 5x7, A7 envelopes with a handwritten card inside. My thought process early on was to do like thank you cards, birthday cards, like relationship building. So help businesses automate or scale sending like letters for building relationships.
I see.
Yeah. And then we kind of pivoted and went more of like a marketing play, because businesses unfortunately want to talk more about marketing and then retention, and they have bigger budgets for marketing. So again, you grow through what you go through. You start with an idea and you just evolve. You can't be rigid in your vision. You have to be adaptable. But yeah, we help companies grow by like selling more authentically. So the handwritten note with a handwritten envelope with a real forever stamp on it has a 99% open rate. And in sales, I mean, one of the hardest things to do is just like to start a conversation. And, I grew up when the internet just started. I was born in 88. Internet started in mid 90s, right? So if you think about how the night, like in the 90s, the mailbox was completely flooded, because that was like how you marketed to people. And then it was email, and then it was online, and then it was ads and Google. And it's kind of like slowly gotten away. So I was like, hey, everybody's shifting this way. There's an opportunity in the mailbox. Nobody's going there. Handwritten is nostalgic. It's interesting. People are going to see it. It's going to, people are going to be curious. They're going to open it. It's just not efficient, and it's not easy to do. And what we've tried to do here, and what I think we've done a good job as, making handwritten mail as easy to send as email and as easy to track. So we can track handwritten mail to the mailbox. When someone scans the QR code, that's a triggerable event. So we have attribution down to the handwritten mail. So in marketing, you want to be able to track where your sales are coming from. We can automate emails, automate text messages, automate phone calls, when someone scans a QR code. So we have a very like high-tech product for, a simple handwritten note. So it looks like a handwritten note, but there's a lot of technology that's been built into it. Excuse me.
No, I see. And so let's say to an entrepreneur who's listening, right? Because in this startup world, you find so many people trying to solve very complex problems. Um, on your side, obviously, at the surface, it might look like a very simple solution, but the journey to get there was not simple at all. There was a lot of thinking that went into it. But you find that sometimes, money is made in the very simple things. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say, what would you say to someone who is trying to go for a challenge that seems like an uphill battle, trying to beat his head, as someone that found a solution that's relatively simple. I mean,
Sure.
when I say simple, obviously the process to get there is not simple at all. You did mention that there are 50 plus iterations. What word of encouragement would you give to someone like that? Because there's so
Sure.
many.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, I talk to young entrepreneurs all the time, and they usually get like in their own head. For example, you're like, oh, somebody's already doing that, or this company will probably do it better. I always give like the example of like HubSpot and Salesforce. It's like, there may be monsters in the market already, but if you're really good at something and you can solve a problem for a very niche audience, like think about it, there's HubSpot, there's Salesforce, but there's a million spinoffs when it comes to CRMs, because these people niche down so well and solve a problem for such a niche group. They can go in there and carve out a really good business for that niche group. And then these bigger companies end up coming out and buying them out later. So
Yeah.
I think people always like, oh, somebody's already doing it. They're too, like there's massive print direct mail companies in this niche, but we're building a handwritten direct mail niche. And eventually some big mail company will probably come by us because we've perfected such a niche product in this like product, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you're really passionate about something and you're really skilled at it, so like you're good at it, you understand it, I would say go for it, whatever it is. And don't worry about what anybody else is doing. There's a million realtors out there. There's a million there's 30 million small businesses in the United States. All of them need help doing something.
Yes.
But if you're good at something, like you can build a business off of it, but it's up to you to kind of have a recipe that's a little bit different that makes the most sense to them. So yeah, I always try to make it resonate through that example. Don't worry about it. Like there's always going to be Salesforce. There's always going to be HubSpot, but there's a million other CRMs out there. And all you need is, to find your first client, work with them, make sure they have a good experience, ask them how they think it can be better, improve on it, and then just keep going, keep stepping forward. But, I think being an entrepreneur, it can't be about money. It can't be about, oh, I want to be my own boss. I want to work less, because if anything, like when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have less money, you're going to sleep less, you're going to work more.
Yes.
And the payoff most of the time isn't until the end. Being a self-funded business, we just reinvest every dollar every single month. And you got to get creative. I've done some consulting on the side sometimes to like when we weren't doing good, right? Because I'm so driven on getting this business to the goal that we've set for it, that like I'm not going to let it go down. Right? I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we reach that goal. So be flexible. Don't be rigid. Don't worry about what other people are doing. If you're good at something, solve a problem for a group of people, and then just see what happens. Like, getting to a 10, 12,000 square foot facility, 11 employees, 220 custom built handwriting robots, that was just over time. I didn't know we were gonna have 200 plus handwriting robots. I didn't know I was gonna be filing patents. I didn't know I was gonna be doing all these things. It just comes over time. So just get started. I think a lot of people just sit there and don't take that first step. And the first step is usually the major cataclysmic event that helps you get going. And most people just don't do that.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, because people look at seven figures, they're like, "Wow, I want to be like him." Because I was going to ask exactly that, like a specific moment when your back was against the wall. How you got over that. You did kind of at a high level highlight how you did consultancy and other stuff, but tell us about a bit of detail how that process was of
Sure.
where you really felt the vision was really tested and how you got over that.
I mean, I still feel it now, being in that, they call the 0 to a million is really hard. 0 to a million in revenue is really hard. I mean, 0 to 100,000 is really hard. But once you get to that $1 to $3 million range, now you are, I wouldn't say you're not a startup anymore. I would say like you're a small business. But that 1 to 3 million range, we call it the swamp, because like now you're big enough to have big bills and bigger problems, but you don't have enough money to solve big problems. You still got to be creative. What got you here won't get you there. Yeah, it's an interesting place. But I was going to say this too, like don't don't listen to people's revenue numbers. Like revenue is vanity, profitability is sanity. Like you can be a really big business and make no money.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people get in that trap, like this is such a tech, like heavy, capital equipment heavy, mail's already a tight margin product. So it's like, we're now trying to get to that like $4+ million a year in revenue, because once you get there, you have more revenue, but now you can put, higher, you can pay more money for, senior level talent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now have heads of departments who can own marketing, who can own sales, who can own product. I'm still like playing in all those fields, trying to get to that next level so we can get these people in here to help us scale to like 10 million. But it's a process. It's a constant puzzle that you're trying to solve. It can be really frustrating. You just got to stay dedicated to it, and just solve a problem every day, or work towards solving a problem every single day. You just can't give up. And a lot of people just give up. And I mean, if you just stay in it and you don't quit, like you can't fail. Like if you quit, that's when you fail, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure. And otherwise, it was really, really great to have you on. Really inspiring story. And and one last question would be, a lot of people want to get in this game and they have that aspiration of like raising capital. So it seems like you bootstrapped your way throughout the journey. So was this something that was deliberate for you from the beginning, or that somewhere along the process did you realize that you'd actually prefer to just run it on your own?
With my background, I had a lot of success in corporate. I was like, okay, I can sell. I had no problem getting some of our first clients. I thought we're going to be able to do it primarily like 100% customer funded. And like I hit a wall, I would say we hit a wall when we were doing like 20 or 30 grand a month in sales. We're $500,000 or $600,000 a year company. And that's what I'm talking about. Like you have to do other things. I would consult and do stuff on the side, and did everything I had to do to keep the money coming in and keep the business going forward. But yeah, I've tried to raise funding in the past, but it's like you talk with these people, and if they're not like in it, like how you're in it, they're just going to turn into like you don't want money. Like, how do I say this? If you're starting a business, you don't want money. You want people who can help you build and grow a business. Money's not going to solve the problem, if that's going to make sense. Like you want partners who are going to make introductions, or who can accelerate the business growth, or who are going to bring like expertise and help your business grow. Money is not going to solve your problem. Like if you're just looking for money, and this is what I realized early on, like people weren't passionate about the project. They're like, yeah, I can give you like 20 grand or 50 grand. But then like now they're going to have ownership, and they're just going to want P&Ls, and they're going to want to be paid out. I'm just like, that's not going to help. Like I need people who are going to come in here and make introductions to, help us land major contracts that are really going to push this business forward. And there's ways to do that, right? Like you don't need to give away, equity. You can just go start out like affiliate and like go talk to people and say, hey, like I will give you X percentage of revenue for anybody that right? That you can make. But there's a lot of work there. That's now going back to my sales side. Like you go in there and you dig, and like, who do I know that knows people? I go talk to them and then ask for introductions. So, that's kind of how I got through that hurdle, in those early days. But, we did a lot of marketing, like SEO, podcasting, backlinking, self-educated on Google ads, ran Google ads. Like that's what I love about being an entrepreneur. It's like the evolution of yourself. If you really attack it and dedicate yourself to it and learn everything about business, you'll see how you just become so like dangerous. And when I say dangerous, just so effective, versus just being like a one-trick pony. Like now I feel like I know enough about everything to where like I can be a better business manager, product manager. I'm like, hey, now I can get like virtual assistants and say, hey, here's our SOP. I need you to go execute it. And now I just manage them versus me doing all the work. So I think there's raising money isn't as exciting as people think it is. There isn't enough, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? It's Friday. Sorry, my brain's like Friday of the week. But like, you should think about running to do it yourself, because
Yeah.
you want to start there. You don't start, we need to raise money. Like that's like your
Mm.
last resort. You should start like, hey, I'm good enough at what I want to start. I know the problem I at least want to attack, and I should at least, talk to like 10 people about my product and get one or two of them to buy it. If you're talking to like 10 people or 20 people and nobody's interested in it, that may be a sign. But if you're talking to these people and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing, and they're interested, you may have something. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would try to avoid raising money at the beginning, unless like you have like the cure to cancer and it's going to change the world and you just need money to get people in the door. But that's not most businesses.
Yeah, because that's almost become a culture.
It is.
So, yeah, indeed. No, so Rick, it was really great to have you. Really great to hear your story. And before we close, obviously there are a lot of people who, I won't say hit the wall. I mean, I am someone that had, athletic aspirations. At some point, I had aspirations in the music industry. I was pretty all right there, but it didn't work out as I expected. And eventually I had to pivot and in life. So before we wrap up, what would be the general, word of encouragement to anybody that is sort of like facing that come to Jesus moment, whether it's a business idea they have to pivot from, or it's a career idea where they have to pivot from, because you pivoted to something that led to greatness.
Yeah. Well, I think greatness is hyper personalized, right? So it's like, everybody has their own version of that. But I'll tell you like what allowed me to keep going. I've always been like a tinkerer and like interested in tech, like drones and cameras. Like I used to like edit like family vacation videos and stuff. This is back when I was doing it like on iMovie, like on a MacBook.
Yeah.
Um, but the idea of a robot holding a pen and writing out a letter in someone's handwriting, it just always blew my mind. I was like, that is so cool. Like that is like so interesting. So it kept me engaged. And I think people need to start there. You need to find something that you're super interested in. And it
Hmm.
doesn't need to be anything crazy. It doesn't. You can monetize anything. You can monetize like you go to like school, skool.com. There's people teaching people how to train dogs like on a community, making tens of thousands of dollars a month, just teaching people how to train dogs, or like how to play pickleball, or how, like, if you're interested in something and you're passionate about it and you know a lot about it, you can monetize it. And
Mm.
that's where people need to start. I was interested in starting a business and I was fascinated about robots holding pens. And like that was enough to keep me going forward.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, like you said, do hit a wall. You got to learn to rest and not quit. If you're getting burnt out, you need to figure out a way to recharge. I like running. I like mountain biking. I went mountain biking last night. Why I like mountain biking is because when I'm out there, my brain, even though I'm physically getting tired, my brain is resting because I can't be thinking about business. I have to watch the trail. So
Yeah.
I shut my brain off for 2 hours, right? So you got to learn how to recharge and rest. Don't quit. Stay committed to your goals. Keep pushing forward. Before you know it, after a year or two, because 9 out of 10 people won't get started. And after a year, out of those 1 out of 10 that started, 9 out of 10 of those people will quit. So if you can get past a couple of years, stay committed to your mission, you're going to look back and like, oh my gosh, look how far I come. But yeah, it's just being resilient. You gotta work out that resilient muscle, and it will all work out for you. But you got to be adaptable. Like you got to be able to pivot and make sure that your vision keeps moving forward.
No, for sure, for sure. So, Rick, thank you so much for joining. It was really great to hear your inspiring story. I mean, whether it's business, whether it's an athletic career, there's so many lessons for life that one can get from it, and this has really been rich, man. So, thank you so much, and God bless you.